Welcome to another episode of Chasing Squirrels, and today we have Kit Barron, and he is the head of automation and artificial intelligence. This is quite the title for FarmTogether. You want to give us a quick view what FarmTogether is, like the 3,000 level?
Sure. Yeah. So FarmTogether, our mission is to democratize investing in agriculture. We believe that farmland is a really attractive asset class from a financial perspective. It has really solid long-term appreciation numbers. It's a real asset, so it's a great hedge against inflation. It pays off a dividend every year in form of the harvest. And most interestingly, it has very low correlation to stocks and bonds and even commercial or residential real estate. So we believe it's a perfect balancer to anybody's portfolio. But today it's really hard to invest in farmland. And so we're trying to make it easier for people like you and me to get access to partial ownership of farmland.
So usually I ask a little bit of background, but because you guys are such an interesting, I think I want to jump into that first, just because it's interesting to me. So how did you guys come to, have you been there since the beginning, or did you kind of jump in once there was growth, or where did you kind of jump into FarmTogether?
So we're still a seed stage company pretty early on. The company's been, it was incorporated in 2017. And then they did the first farmland deal in September of 2019. So we're just about a year and a half into actually syndicating farms on our platform. I joined about 6 months ago. And my most recent gig, I spent about 6 years at the Climate Corporation building out the leading farm management information system, so SaaS product for farmers, and really got familiar about the ag tech data ecosystem, all of the interesting innovation happening there. And when I started talking with the CEO about 8 months ago, I was like, this is a fascinating idea. I had a ton of, we had these amazing conversations about how we could leverage data and data science into finding more attractive parcels of land, doing predictive pricing and predictive kind of likeliness to sell algorithms, and ultimately managing farms and giving our investors better access into what's happening on their farms day to day. So all in all, it just seemed like a really good fit, exciting opportunity to get in at the ground stage at a really cool company.
Actually, originally from Vienna, so my uncle's a farmer, and so I grew up helping him, and that's when I realized I was never going to be a great farmer because they work so insanely hard. But the and they get up at like 4:30 in the morning every day, basically forever. But I'm curious, where are you guys looking to buy farms, or do you have to get like registered with like any government body to like sell them like portions of it, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So right now, as we kind of look at our portfolio, we're about 85% focused on what we call permanent crops. So this is like trees, so apples, citrus, tree nuts, dates, and avocados, and also we're trying to get into wine grapes a little bit. And then the other 15% or so is what we kind of refer to as row crops. So these would be your corn and soy and wheat, probably more the types of things your uncle in Indiana grows.
A lot of corn.
A lot of corn. And so that's kind of my background, coming from the big row crop space. So yeah, so in terms of like what licenses we need, there are some states that have kind of anti-corporate ownership licenses. So you have to be, corporations can own farmland in like Iowa, for example, and there's a lot of subtle nuance in each state. Our model, basically, we create a LLC for every farm that we acquire, and then our investors take a ownership stake in that LLC. And so it's a innovative legal model that helps us get access to farms that we might not otherwise be able to, what your traditional like big ag investment fund might not be able to get.
Gotcha. So in general, are you buying, where does the return come from? Is that from your like leasing the land, or you're having farmers like actually do the work for you? I'm curious how that whole model works. Like, where's the return coming from?
Yeah, there's a couple of different kind of leasing and ownership models that we enter into, but the most common is, the LLC, we purchased the farm, we syndicate it out to the investors, And then we partner with kind of best-in-class operators on the ground. We just closed a $14 million apple project up in Washington. We're going to transition it from conventional Red Delicious, who likes Red Delicious anymore, and go organic with Cosmic Crisp and Sweet Tango. So really cool development. And we're partnering with one of the leading organic apple farmers, family-owned company called Stemelt up in Washington. They're going to manage the property. They're going to help us. They helped us secure the trees. They're going to help us manage the property and ultimately market the produce as well. And so, we've got the way the kind of investors get their payout is as those trees mature and start producing, they get a percentage of the harvest or the revenue from the harvest. And then once we sell the property at the end of 10 or 12 years, depending on the property, they get a percentage of the revenue from the sale of the farm. And so you can imagine, taking this kind of end of life Red Delicious orchard, transitioning to the latest hybrids that are organic. We're hoping that the farm will really command a premium in 10 years that we'll be able to return back to our investors, in addition to the cash flow they get every year from the investment once the trees mature.
Okay. And so is like the original investment have to be held for until the farm is sold, or can you kind of buy and sell shares in the meantime? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. So our first couple of deals, we believe that in order to really tap into the longer term market dynamics, it's important to have longer term hold periods. That's probably true for most asset classes,
Definitely,
except for GameStop maybe.
The asset classes where you make money long term, you usually have to hold, like private equity, right? You have to hold for like 7 to 10 years, I think.
Totally. And so that said, that was kind of an obstacle. So our farms are kind of our deals have been 8 to 12 years, and we were hearing from some investors like, I have something unexpected happened, or I want to buy a house or something. I need some money out. So we've actually piloted our first secondary market recently, which allowed investors in one of our Mandarin citrus properties to sell shares and new investors to buy into it. And so our goal is to ultimately have secondary market opportunities available once a year or so, I think, for every property. Okay. But we're still learning, we're still figuring it out, but that's definitely on our roadmap, is to provide kind of more regular liquidity events.
You probably can't short any farms, right?
No, there might be an instrument out there. We'll have to check the Reddit. But today, no, we certainly don't enable that, and we certainly wouldn't recommend that based on the trends that we see.
Oh, definitely. So I'm curious, in the Climate Corporation, you said you built a large SaaS product, and I'm sure you had a lot of learnings from that process. What was that product? And I'm just curious overall, like what was the product, and what were kind of your learnings into the industry that were inefficient that you're kind of helping solve?
Sure. Well, the product, it changed massively over the 6 years that I was there. And it started off as a weather insurance product that kind of morphed into using that same weather data set into a web app that farmers could get field-specific weather forecasts on. Okay. And then we started building out agronomic advisors on top of that. So combining that weather data with soil data and production data about the farm, we were able to, and remote sensing data, we were able to start making recommendations on how many seeds should you be planting per acre in different parts of the farm. So what we call precision agriculture. We acquired a company that had an IoT device, basically a listening device you'd stick into the onboard computer of any tractor or combine. It would stream all of that data out. We pushed that into our recommendations as well. Gave farmers the ability to, through our product called FieldView, to visualize geospatially all of the data that's coming off of their equipment, all of the soil maps, satellite imagery, and so really allowed them to not just get the kind of like black box recommendations on what some data scientist thinks they should do, but also allowed them to make practical operational decisions about how much they should invest in fertility in different parts of the field, what types of hybrids to plant, and give them a really easy to use visual record of everything they've done, since they've been farming that property. It was a really successful product. I think it was on a roughly 30% of all row crops, so corn and bean farms in the United States as of last year. So really saw tons of adoption, and that was really exciting. I think one of the things in terms of like lessons I learned, one, in agriculture, it's incredibly fragmented, and it's really hard to go to market without an established player kind of behind your back. So the Climate Corporation was actually acquired by Monsanto, which was later acquired by Bayer Corporation. And so we were, I think, able in part to achieve the success we did through the distribution channels that those companies had through selling seed and other crop inputs. I think the other thing was like really interesting was, like our listening device, our kind of IoT device, initially was only compatible with a couple types of equipment. The John Deere, the latest model John Deere stuff.
Isn't that all farmers have? Is John Deere's?
Oh man, you don't want to say that in like ag Twitter. That's gonna spark.
Oh really?
No. Well, you get you get really loyal farmers that are like all in, all green. John Deere all the time.
That was my uncle. That's why I know that. That's why I'm on that side of the fence. What's the other side of the fence?
Well, you have the Case, you have the Red, the Case New Holland, and then there's a bunch of specialty implements in between. And so, like the Deere systems are awesome for farmers that are all in on Deere. But we were able with our device to basically get compatibility to any kind of tractor, combine, sprayer, tillage machine, everything. And so that really gave us kind of a leg up in the market. And I think, Deere's kind of caught on and they're pursuing that model as well. But I think it was a cool learning opportunity to watch, the difference between the Apple standard of John Deere, it's all in the John Deere green temple, as they call it, versus an open standard, more Android, where like we're going to be compatible with everything. So I think that was really cool to observe in the farming industry.
I like that. I just found out about ag Twitter. And and then I definitely don't have any strong opinions. I only know what I know. I only saw the green tractors around Indiana.
Yeah. Well, did you ever get like gifts from the Deere dealers are awesome. They'll send like to scale models of the all the equipment.
Yeah. Even at this last Christmas, my little nephew's got little John Deere tractors, like remote control tractors and stuff. They were all John Deere. I was like, man, these marketing guys are so genius.
Well, and they make them like exact replicas. I think there are a couple different scales. Like there's the 1/32nd scale and the 64th scale.
Definitely, that's awesome. So so I'm curious from a head of, like having your title be head of automation. I'm curious. Are you also looking to automate internal processes, or how do you kind of think about that? Because I'm just a huge fan of automation in general. A lot around traditional businesses is more my familiarity with like things that people are still, it drives me nuts when people copy and paste stuff over and over when they can, that doesn't need to be done anymore. But I'm curious how you think about that in this role and for FarmTogether.
Yeah, I mean, a big obstacle. So there are institutional farmland investors out there, like the Hancocks and Prudentials all have like big hundreds of millions of dollars invested in farmland. But they typically go for the really big properties, like $10-15 million and up. And we believe that's actually creating this kind of gap in the capital markets for some of the smaller farms. And so it's, I think they're probably trading at a discount relative to what they could be if they were more accessible. And one of the reasons that those big investors aren't going after those little guys is just because it's really expensive to underwrite because of how kind of fragmented the information ecosystem is about these farms. And so what we're trying to do is leverage a lot of the modern data sets to help us automate as much of the underwriting process as possible. Now, we still visit the farms. Like you can't buy a farm sight unseen
right.
and expect to have a great asset in your portfolio. But we're trying to automate as much of the busy work out of it as we can. And really kind of leave like just the most, get our expert agronomists focused on expert agronomy stuff instead of like filling out Excel models and counting trees, which we can now do using satellites, and a bunch of other things that we believe we can kind of automate. So I think the other thing is like the whole appraisal industry. I don't know if you've gone through a real estate transaction, but it's incredibly like arcane and just a lot of copying and pasting, as you called it. And so we're just building our internal processes that we like, so we can just make the whole process of identifying, sourcing, underwriting, and closing a deal much more efficient. And so we don't need like a giant armies of people. We can use computers.
Awesome. So it looks like you specifically right now are hiring for, the titles are senior data engineer and data science lead. And I know you have some web dev openings we'll touch on in just a minute. Are these data positions both reporting to you? Or are you kind of building out your team at this point?
Yeah, that's right. So these are, we right now have kind of one on the kind of sourcing and the data science side of things. We have one front end and one data engineer, and so this is really a significant scaling up of the team. So yeah, we're looking for a senior data engineer that's really responsible for the ingest pipelines, helping us clean the data, build the data lake out. And then our data science lead is really going to be responsible for, once that data is in play, how do we leverage it to find farms that are a great fit for our portfolio, solve other core business problems like classifying and tagging the data, figuring out how we can leverage that to come up with predictive pricing, potentially automate some of the appraisal process, things like that.
So when I hear data lake and some of these models, is this mainly people that are somewhat have experience or familiar with Python and maybe AWS? Is that what you kind of use for the data lake process?
Yeah, that's, we're still building out the data science stack. A lot of our kind of data, our data kind of warehouse and or I guess data lake, kind of split hairs about it, is largely Java right now. But then some of the data science models is in Python. So we're want a kind of senior data science lead to really also help us think through, what's the right tech stack for our company as we're growing. Yeah.
Well, that's a great opportunity then. So not only do you have to, you're not being dictated what it is, you get to essentially have a say in kind of what would make the most sense and then have a part of it, right?
That's absolutely right. We really want somebody who is, wants to build this function and build this team out. And so it's like, it's kind of a player coach role, somebody who's thinking strategically about what's the right tech stack, is a really close partner to me on the product side on figuring out what are the right problems to solve with AI, like in data science. And as well as kind of implement the tech stack alongside the data engineer role.
And it looks like you're hiring for a lead and a senior data engineer. Is there a difference between the two, or just kind of looking for, two specific niches within those? Like one will be the player coach. How does that work?
Well, so the data science lead is really looking for somebody who has the kind of more of the, statistics background, and ideally somebody who has some familiarity with geospatial data sets, has worked in some kind of climate or environmental modeling, potentially some financial modeling would be an interesting background as well, or somebody familiar with like real estate data or pricing algorithms. So that's really kind of like the developing the algorithms, testing the algorithms, and then the data engineer is really about, hey, how do we productionalize this? How do we build the systems and pipelines and rails to, make bring the dream of the data science to life in an efficient, scalable way.
And will these be the first two people on your team as you're building it out, or are there already some people on there now?
Yeah, so we have a kind of a full stack data, we kind of focused on data engineering right now, and a front end developer as well, kind of web dev that are helping build the internal, like the tools that we're using right now. So we call our database Terra. It's a database of basically every parcel of farmland in the geographies we're targeting, and we enrich it with several dozen data sets from things like hydrological basins, so what's the water table look like, to soil data, to other demographic data about the owners, like how much debt do they carry on a property, for example. And so that's kind of the prototype that we have right now, built by an awesome team, but we're really looking to scale up this year.
Awesome. And what's the interview process look like to be on your team?
Yeah, so we have an initial. I'll take kind of an initial screening call, and we'll have a conversation. It's really kind of a two-way conversation. Is there mutual interest here? What are the motivations of the candidate? Like, I spend as much time talking about what FarmTogether is, what our mission and strategy are, what the team looks like, as I do asking questions about, what does the candidate, what are they looking for in the next role? Because I think we really, as such a small company, we really want to find the right culture fit, somebody who loves the mission and is excited about the ability to help us design and bring technology to solving some of these really hard problems that are important for the future of humanity in a lot of ways. So that's kind of first step. Sorry, I got a little poetic about that. We typically have 2 stakeholder interviews after that. So somebody on the investing team, and it's really about how well do they interface with the business. And then my product counterpart who runs our investing platform and the kind of client-facing front end and the financial integrations, Olga. So those would be kind of the two next folks in the loop. And then we'll do a technical interview, and that's kind of tailored to the role. And then if everything goes well, kind of a final meet and greet with the CEO, and hopefully to offer. So that's awesome. The loop that we were following for these 2 roles.
Do you guys usually do like project-based stuff or code tests, or just go through code they've written, or how do you usually do the technical assessments?
They're kind of tailored to the role. I mean, so we haven't in the past done projects. We typically do like, hey, here is some example code, and kind of like tell us what's going on. What is this snippet intending to do? What do you like about it? Where do you see improvement? So really, it's about how do they think critically about code, and then there's typically like an architecture question. Probably for the data engineer, would be more of an architecture question. Maybe for the data scientist, it would be more like how would you structure a data science question or a research project around this particular research question.
Okay. And then I know you guys have a bunch of open roles in the web dev, so I don't want to ignore some of those. You want to talk about some of those?
Yeah, we have. It's an exciting quarter. We have I think 8 open roles right now on our Angel list, angel.co profile. We have a front end software engineer. We're all remote team right now. Got a kind of a hub in San Francisco, a hub in Austin, a hub in New York, but we're open to remote hiring. The front end stack, HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, React, and then back end side. So we've got a couple of front end roles, and then we also have a couple of back end roles as well. And we're looking for somebody, Python, Java, Kotlin, Spring Framework, Spring Boot, and then strong like Postgres, SQL, MongoDB, et cetera, type of stuff. And so then we're AWS.
I was going to say you guys got a lot of Java going on at the moment then too.
Yeah, tons of Java. That's our bread and butter right now. So
awesome. Okay. And is there anything else about the about FarmTogether that I didn't touch on that you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing I'd say is, for your listeners that may not feel like, or who want to learn more about the company or even participate in a deal, we're regularly launching farms. We just had one, pistachio, 80-acre pistachio orchard went live yesterday. We're really excited. It sold out in a little over 3 hours. So we're selling them as fast as we can find them. So it's a really exciting time to be here, and I encourage folks to sign up for an account. And as a new investor, you can get kind of preferential. There are often perks that we might offer new investors, first-time investors on our platform. So I encourage everyone to take a look.
Do you have to be accredited to invest on your platform, or can anybody do it?
Yeah, today it is accredited only, but we're working on kind of, there's some new regulation around that, and it'll be really interesting to see how like this recent, Robinhood, what kind of legislation comes out of that. But we're really pushing to make it even more accessible to every investor, because accreditation can be a high bar for most people.
I kind of feel like it's inevitable at this point. It kind of reminds me of like gambling. online gambling like 5 years ago, where like fantasy football was the loophole, right? And so like the loophole is kind of like this Robin Hood fiasco. And then over time, I mean, there's nothing, in my opinion, if you want to solve the income equality deal, or at least take a step, maybe not solve the whole thing, but like, why can people buy lottery tickets, but they can't invest in farmland, right? Like, I don't understand.
Totally. And it's like some of the larger, family offices and high net worth individuals, they're like, we only look at deals that are over 15%
Definitely.
or 20% IRR. I was like, well, God, your average person doesn't have any way to get into a deal like that. I was also so excited to see Carta just announce that they're creating an exchange to allow people to trade privately held shares. And I just think it's such a cool trend right now, and we're hoping we're going to be on the forefront of that, at least with the farmland side of things.
The farmland side is really exciting in the sense that it kind of reminds me of people I know that like buy small businesses that like private equity funds are like, this is just too small for us to care about. Maybe it's like $2 to $5 million. So as a result, those smaller businesses don't get the valuation that like a private equity bought business would get, right? And so you're kind of like crushing that niche, but in the farmland space where it's too big, or it's not big enough for the large funds to care about, but like the rest of us out in the world actually care about getting a return and in a thing that actually makes money.
Totally. And the other big dynamic, I think the average American farmer today is like 63. And you think about this massive, and so many of their children who, in many cases, they've been kind of building the farm to pass on down, aren't interested in opportunities on the farm. And so it creates this really complicated dynamic that we've seen in our family of like, you've got 4 kids and one wants to farm, the other 3 move to the city. How do you, and maybe that farm's worth $3 million. How does one kid buy out the other 3? And I think we believe there's some really creative ways we could bring capital to help make those transitions easier on the families and keep people farming who want to farm.
Definitely. I mean, farming is a lot of work, and I don't want to hate on my entire generation, but it's pretty early in the morning they get up and they work pretty hard. So I get it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's another thing to mention. We don't have really early hours at FarmTogether, so we all work hard and love what we do, but we're not on. We're all on different time zones and are pretty kind of independent. So yeah, I'll put another plug there.
It's good too. You guys are getting in. It's still the ground floor level. You guys are just getting started with this deal. Because even having looked at your website, it was the first time I have even heard of this concept. So it's just 10 years from now, we'll see on CNBC all these people asset class and trading farmland as an asset class. And they'll be talking about you guys.
That's our hope. And ultimately we want to have a FarmTogether shares that you can invest in your 401k. We're really
definitely
we have our CEO's got a brilliant guy with tons of ideas and all the different ways we can hack into the existing investing world. And so we're come join us, come be part of it. It's a really exciting time. I don't know if you saw, there was an article just a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that like Bill Gates is now the largest private landowner in the country of farmland. And so I thought that was really timely for us that there are other big fish out there that see the value in it, and we're hoping that's going to attract more smaller fish our way.
I mean, I have zero desire to discuss Bitcoin as an asset class right now, but one of the biggest selling points for people that are really into it are the fact that more graded, right? So like thing with land, like that's he's like, no more farmland. Nobody's building more farmland out there. There's a fixed amount of farmland, and I know soil is like a huge concern too. The quality of the soil in certain parts of the country are super important too. So is there a huge risk
Totally.
when you're buying farms of like the soil analysis and everything? I would imagine there is, right?
Yeah. There's some pretty good soil data sets out there so we basically look at the soil classification and some of the other attributes of the soil for every property we look at. There is a really big risk around I think there's climate change is something that's really presents in water. And so we're spending a lot of time understanding, I think I mentioned earlier, like the hydrological basins and irrigation districts. And so we're one of the first big projects is going to be building out a water supply risk index for the data scientists. And so we're really thinking about not just the downsides of climate, it's like how do we avoid properties that might be adversely impacted, but we're also looking at, climate change is occurring. Are there upsides as well? Like, might you be able to plant almonds a little bit further north into Oregon than you would have in the past? So how do we how do we take some bets based on those, the trends that seem to be occurring, and avoid potential pitfalls? We're also really proud to, we just announced a partnership with a group called Leading Harvest, and we're enrolling 100% of our acres in their ESG, so environmental social governance impact standard. And so we basically want every one of our farms to be taking the steps to manage, collect the data and demonstrate compliance with these rigorous standards that show that we're farming sustainably. The soil is not just something we're losing; it's also, in many ways, can be the solution to part of to carbon sequestration. And there's some great science out there that shows how healthy, living, microbial-rich soils sequester huge amounts, like teratons of carbon. And we want to be part of that as well, and really kind of encourage best practices on the farms, so we can be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
That's awesome. All right, I have a lot more questions about the farming industry, but none about the position. I think you answered all those questions. So I'm sure we'll have you back on shortly, because it sounds like this will be the first wave, and then the next wave will come once everybody that's listening invests.
Yeah, all right. Come join us, and really enjoyed the conversation, Jeff. And always excited to nerd out on automation and/or agriculture at a later date. So let's definitely stay in touch.
I mean, I think it's super important work. It's near and dear to me, just because I saw all of the. Basically everything we're eating, right? Like you can talk about drones and artificial intelligence, but at the end of the day, we still got to eat at the end of the day, right?
Amen.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Kit. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it, Jeff. Take care.